They paid me $400 to sit in an empty building for 12 hours. The Hartley office complex had been evacuated 3 days prior. Structural concerns, possible fire hazards in the electrical system. My job was simple: walk the floors every 2 hours, check for smoke, make sure nobody broke in, and log everything in a notebook that nobody would ever read. Fire watch. Easiest money I'd made in months. I signed in at 8 p.m. The property manager handed me the keys, a flashlight, and a building schematic with my patrol route highlighted in yellow. He reminded me the power would be cut at midnight for the inspection team coming at 6 a.m. Then he left, and I was alone. For the first few hours, it was actually peaceful. I walked the route. 2nd floor, 4th floor, 7th floor, back down to the lobby. The building had that particular silence that comes from absence. Not quiet, absent, like the space itself was holding its breath. At 11:30, I made coffee in the break room on the 2nd floor. The machine still worked. The cream in the fridge was still good. Someone had left a half-eaten bagel on the counter, wrapped in a napkin with a name written on it. Jennifer. The date written underneath was from 4 days ago, 1 day after the evacuation order. I threw it away and didn't think much about it. The power cut out at midnight exactly. My flashlight became the only light source in 14 floors of complete darkness. I'd done overnight security before. Darkness didn't bother me, but this felt different, heavier somehow. I started my 2 a.m. patrol on schedule. 2nd floor, clear. 4th floor, clear. 7th floor. That's where I noticed something. The conference room door was closed. I'd walked past it 4 times already. It had been open every single time. I remembered because there was a whiteboard inside covered in equations and diagrams. Something about load-bearing calculations. Now the door was shut. I stood there, listened. Nothing. I opened it. The room was empty, but the whiteboard had been erased, completely clean, and the chairs that had been scattered around the table were now pushed in, organized, all 8 of them perfectly aligned. My hand was suddenly very aware of how tightly it gripped the flashlight. I closed the door, continued the route. 4th floor, everything normal. 2nd floor, break room door closed. I'd left it open. I knew I'd left it open because I'd been annoyed that the motion sensor light kept flickering even with the main power off. Emergency lighting. Now the door was closed and no light seeped from underneath. I didn't open it. I went back to the lobby, checked my watch. 2:47 a.m. 3.5 hours until the inspection team arrived. I sat at the security desk and pulled out the building schematic to review my route. The paper felt wrong, thicker than before. I aimed my flashlight at it. It wasn't the same map I was shown. This one was printed on different paper. Heavier stock. The layout was identical, but the highlighted route was different. My original path had been marked in yellow highlighter. This one was printed in red ink, and there were labels I didn't remember seeing. Floor 2, break room, secured 2:15. Floor 7, conference room, secured 1:45. Floor 4, men's restroom, secured 3:30. That last timestamp was 43 minutes from now. At the bottom of the page, in small printed text, Obstruction Removal Protocol, Phase 1. My mouth went dry. I pulled out my phone. No signal. There never was in this building. That's why they'd given me the landline number for emergencies. I picked up the desk phone. Dead. The power was cut. Of course it was dead. I stood up. The lobby suddenly felt enormous. My flashlight beam barely reached the elevators across the polished floor. I could see my reflection in the dark windows, and nothing else. That's when I heard it. Not footsteps, not voices, just movement, purposeful, organized, like furniture being rearranged, coming from somewhere above me. I looked at the schematic again, really looked at it this time. There was a handwritten note in the margin I'd missed. Cleared floors, 2, 4, 7, 9, 11, 13. Remaining, lobby 1, 3, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. My route only covered 3 floors. Someone else had been clearing the others. Someone else was still here. I moved toward the stairwell. Quiet. Careful. My shift didn't end until 8 a.m., but there was no chance I was staying. I'd call from my car. Report it. Let someone else deal with whatever the hell this was. The stairwell door was locked. From the outside. I tried the other one. Same thing. Both emergency exits. both sealed. My breathing was getting loud. Too loud. I forced it slower. Thought it through. The elevators wouldn't work without power. The stairwells were locked. The phone was dead. I was trapped in the lobby of an empty building. Except it wasn't empty. The sound came again. Closer now. Definitely from the second floor. Something heavy sliding across the floor. Then stopping. Then a door closing with a soft click. I looked at my watch. 3:28 a.m. 2 minutes until whoever was up there moved to the 4th floor men's restroom. 2 minutes to decide what to do. I turned off my flashlight. Let my eyes adjust to the darkness. Emergency exit signs provided just enough green glow to see shapes. I moved behind the security desk, crouched low, and waited. At exactly 3:30, I heard footsteps in the stairwell. Descending. Purposeful. Not trying to be quiet. They reached the 4th floor landing. Stopped. A door opened. Closed. Then silence. I don't know how long I stayed there. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been 30. Time loses meaning when you're hiding in the dark. Then every fire alarm in the building started screaming. Not all at once. Sequentially. Starting from the top floor. 14th. 13th. 12th. Each one triggered exactly 3 seconds after the last. Working down toward me. I stood up. Grabbed the schematic. Found the alarm panel locations. The lights were descending in the exact reverse order of the cleared floors. 14th. Cleared. 12th. Cleared. 10th. Cleared. The alarms reached the 7th floor. My last patrol location. The floor I'd just been on an hour ago. The control panel on the wall behind the desk showed which zones were triggering. I watched the indicators light up in sequence. Watched them descend. Watched them reach the 2nd floor. Then the lobby indicator lit up. The alarm directly above my head started wailing. I looked at the panel. At the zone status. Lobby, cleared 347. But I was standing in it. The stairwell door unlocked with a heavy metallic click. Both of them. And I realized what the schematic had meant. Obstruction removal protocol. They hadn't been clearing the building of fire hazards. They'd been clearing it of me. The door began to open. I ran. I made it to the 2nd floor stairwell before my legs gave out. The alarms had stopped. All of them. At once. Like someone had flipped a switch. The silence after was worse. I pressed myself against the wall. Listened. Footsteps below me. Above me. Moving with some type of mechanical rhythm, like they were executing a pattern. My flashlight beam caught something on the wall. A laminated notice I'd walked past a dozen times without reading. Hartley Office Complex, demolition scheduled. Permit date, January 24th. Demolition date, January 28th. Today was January 28th. My hands went numb. This building wasn't being inspected. It was being torn down. The evacuation wasn't for safety concerns. It was permanent, and every person who'd worked here had been gone for 3 days. The bagel in the break room. Jennifer's name. I pulled out my phone. Checked the date I'd written when I signed in. January 27th. Yesterday. But my watch said January 28th, 4:03 a.m. I'd lost an entire day somewhere. The footsteps stopped moving. My radio crackled. The one the property manager had given me. I'd forgotten I had it clipped to my belt. A voice came through. Calm. Professional. Final sweep complete. Building confirmed empty. Demo team has authorization to proceed at 6 o'clock. I pressed the button. Tried to speak. My voice came out broken. I'm still inside. 2nd floor stairwell. I'm still here. Static. Then the same voice responded. Negative. Fire watch logged out at 11:47. Building has been vacant for 7 hours. I checked my sign-in sheet. The one in my pocket. My signature was there. Sign out time, 11:47. But I never left. I looked at my hands. At the flashlight. At the coffee stain on my shirt from the break room. The radio crackled again. Sir, if someone's in the building, we need a name and employee ID for our records. I opened my mouth. Tried to remember. The property manager's face. What he'd looked like. What he'd said to me. The lobby. Whether I'd actually walked through the front door or just appeared at the security desk. My name. I tried to say my name. Nothing came. The footsteps started again. All around me now. Coming from every direction. But when I shined my light, the stairwell was empty. My radio went dead. Outside, I heard vehicles arriving. Voices. The demolition crew starting their morning safety check. I ran down the stairs, hit the ground floor, threw myself at the exit door. It opened easily. I stumbled into the parking lot. Dawn was breaking. The crew was unloading equipment 50 yards away. I turned back to look at the building. Every window was dark except one. Second floor. Break room. Someone was standing there, watching me. They raised their hand, pressed something against the glass. A sign-in sheet. My signature at the bottom, with the previous day's date, and that of the next day. The emergency call system has a voice. Not the callers, I mean the system itself. After 3 years working overnight dispatch at a roadside monitoring center, you learn its rhythm. The mechanical click before a line connects. The static hum of an open channel. The particular buzz when someone hits a blue emergency button on Highway 52. I know them all by heart. But that night in February, at 2:47 a.m., the system made a sound I'd never heard before. A kind of wet crackling, like someone breathing through water. The screen lit up. Mile marker 287. Same button that gets flagged twice a month. Drunks who think it's funny. Kids on dares. I've logged 17 false alarms from that exact spot since September. Protocol is clear. Flag the location. Note the time. Do not dispatch. I reached for my coffee, and that's when I heard the whisper. Help me. 2 words. Barely audible. The kind of quiet that comes from someone who's afraid to be heard. My hand froze halfway to the keyboard. The audio quality was terrible, muffled, distant, like the person was pressed against something. I turned up the volume. Please. I can't. He's coming back. A woman's voice. Young. Absolutely terrified. Standard procedure for prank locations is to wait 60 seconds. If they disconnect or laugh or ask if we're recording, you log it and move on. I glanced at the timer. 43 seconds left. The breathing continued. Short. Controlled. Then a sound that made my skin go cold, a soft metallic click. A car door unlocking from the outside. I leaned toward the microphone. This is roadside emergency services. Can you tell me your location? The breathing stopped. For 5 seconds there was nothing. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. Nathan. My name. Not yelled. Not panicked. Said carefully like she was rationing every breath. Like she'd been saving it. The room tilted. Nobody knows my name on these calls. The system doesn't broadcast it. We're trained to stay anonymous. I stared at the blinking red indicator showing the open line. Who is this? My voice came out wrong. Too tight. The response was immediate. You have to send someone. You have to hurry. He said he'd let me go if I could get someone to come. He said this time it would work. This time. I pulled up the location history. 17 calls since September. Before that, nothing for 2 years. Before that, I scrolled faster. 9 calls in 3 months. Then the location went dormant. All flagged as false alarms. All marked, do not dispatch. My hands were shaking now. I clicked into the archived audio files. Listened to the first call from 4 years ago. A man's voice, young, begging for help. Then laughing. Then screaming before the line cut out. Flagged as prank. The second call. A woman crying. Saying her boyfriend was hurt. Then silence. Disconnect. Flagged as prank. I opened the case notes. Found the name of the officer who'd driven out there after the first few calls. His report was 3 sentences long. No evidence of distress. No vehicles present. Tire tracks leading into woods, but no clear trail. Recommend flagging location. The breathing on the line was getting faster. Nathan, please. You know me. You have to remember. I typed her words into the missing persons database. Cross-referenced the location. The search took 11 seconds. When the photo loaded, the coffee mug slipped from my hand. Callie Tillman. Reported missing March 2021. Last seen near mile marker 287 on Highway 52. Vehicle recovered 3 days later, abandoned. No signs of struggle. Case went cold after 6 months. I stared at her photo. At the way she smiled. At the blonde hair I'd helped her dye in my apartment the week before she disappeared. At my ex-girlfriend. The line crackled. Nathan, I can see the lights. I can see your building from here. You're so close. My entire body went numb. The monitoring center sits half a mile from Highway 52. Anyone on that road can see our windows. I stood up, looked toward the darkened glass, saw only my own reflection and the emergency lights casting red across the parking lot. When I sat back down, my hands were moving on their own, opening the dispatch screen, entering the override code, typing the location. The whisper came through one last time. Thank you. 2 units confirmed. ETA 6 minutes. I watched the timer count down, listened to the breathing, tried to understand how someone missing for over 4 years could be calling from a location flagged as a prank zone. Tried to understand how she knew where I worked. At 4 minutes, I heard the sirens in the distance. At 3 minutes, the breathing changed, became deeper, rougher. At 2 minutes, I realized it wasn't her breathing anymore. And at 1 minute, a different voice came through the speaker. Low, amused. She said you'd come through, Nathan. She said you'd break protocol. The line went dead. The sirens stopped, and my phone screen lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. 1 photo attached. My finger hovered over it. Outside, the parking lot lights went out one by one. I opened the photo. It was the inside of a trunk. Dark, cramped, and in the corner, barely visible, was a woman's hand. The nail polish was chipped, burgundy, the same color Callie always wore. But the hand was moving, scratching something into the metal. A date. Today's date. My radio crackled. Unit 12 on scene. No vehicle. No person. They're checking the woods now. I zoomed in on the photo. Behind the hand, I could see a reflection in the trunk latch. A face. Watching. Waiting for the police to leave. They always leave. I pulled up the missing persons reports again. Callie Tillman wasn't the only one. 6 people. All reported missing near mile marker 287 over 8 years. All had their cases go cold. All had someone close to them working dispatch or emergency services. All had someone who knew their voice. My phone buzzed again. They never find anyone, Nathan. Because they're looking in the wrong place while I'm watching them search. While I'm driving past them. While the person in my trunk listens to sirens fade away. The radio crackled. Unit 12 clearing the scene. Nothing found. Recommend maintaining prank status. I stared at the screen. At the timestamp on the photo. Taken 4 minutes ago. The units had been on scene for 3. He'd driven right past them. My hands moved across the keyboard. I pulled traffic camera footage from Highway 52. Rewound to 6 minutes ago. Watched 2 police cruisers head north toward mile marker 287. Then I saw it. A sedan. Dark blue. Heading south. Away from the marker. Passing directly by the police units going the opposite direction. I froze the frame. Enhanced the license plate. It was registered to a name I recognized. Officer Nathan Voss. My father's name. He died when I was 18. Car accident on Highway 52. They never found the other vehicle involved. The phone rang. My desk phone. The one that only receives internal calls. I answered. The voice was older than mine. Tired. Familiar in a way that made my throat close. You look just like your dad. I couldn't breathe. She's still alive. For now. But those units are gone. And I need to know. Are you going to tell them to turn around? Are you going to give them a real location? My finger hovered over the dispatch button. Because if you do, I'll just make the call again next month. Next year. And eventually, your name will come up on someone else's screen. The line went dead. The traffic camera showed the sedan pulling off at exit 290. Right next to the storage facility where my father used to rent a unit. The one I still pay for. The one I've never opened. If you're still with me, subscribe. The next story is where it gets worse. My incident reports were always empty. For 6 months, I'd been working overnight sanitation at the Westfield Research Facility. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for floors of laboratories, offices, and storage rooms. My job was simple: clean, document anything unusual, submit a report by morning. My reports were always the same. No incidents, no anomalies. Routine cleaning completed. Everyone else's reports were novels. Jalen, who handled the East Wing, averaged 3 pages a night. Bloodstains in the stairwell. Broken equipment in Lab 6. Furniture moved in the archive room. He documented everything with photos and timestamps. Janet covered the north section. Her reports were worse. Smeared handprints on windows. Damaged ceiling tiles. Chemical spills that weren't there at the start of her shift. Even Rodriguez, who'd been here 12 years, filed detailed incident reports every single week. I thought I was just lucky. Got the quiet wing. The boring floors. Then last Tuesday, I actually read their reports. All of them. Jalen documented bloodstains in stairwell C at 2:34 a.m. Small droplets leading from the third floor to the basement. He noted the blood was fresh. Still wet. My route took me through stairwell C at 2:15 a.m. I'd walked right past that spot 19 minutes before Jalen found it. There was no blood. I checked Janet's report from the same night. Handprints on the fourth floor observation window. Timestamp, 4:47 a.m. She included a photo. 5 fingers. Palm pressed flat. Smeared like someone had been pushing against the glass. I cleaned those windows at 4:30. They'd been spotless. I started going through weeks of reports, cross-referencing times and locations. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Every incident they documented happened in areas I'd already cleaned. Minutes after I'd left, sometimes seconds, Jalen found overturned chairs in the break room at 1:22 a.m. I'd restocked that same break room at 1:18 a.m. For minutes, the chairs had been fine. Rodriguez reported a chemical smell in storage room 9 at 3:45 a.m. Described it as sulfuric. Overwhelming. I'd been in that room at 3:40 a.m. organizing supplies. No smell. Nothing unusual. Either my co-workers were lying on their reports or something was happening the moment I left each location. I started testing it. On Wednesday night, I cleaned Lab 4 on the second floor. Mopped the floors. Emptied the trash. Left at exactly midnight. Then I waited around the corner. Watched the door. At 12:04 a.m., Jalen came up the stairs for his rounds. Entered Lab 4. I heard him curse. Heard his camera click multiple times. His report the next morning documented a broken beaker and scattered glass across the floor I'd just mopped. Fresh break. Still sharp. He noted concerns about safety protocols. I'd left that room spotless 4 minutes earlier. Thursday night, I tried something different. I cleaned the third floor conference room. Wiped down the table. Straightened all 12 chairs. Left at 2:17 a.m. But I didn't go far. I stood in the supply closet across the hall. Door cracked open. Watching. Nothing happened for 8 minutes. Then at 2:25 a.m., I heard it. A sound, like wood scraping across linoleum. Coming from inside the conference room. I stepped into the hallway. The conference room door was still closed. The scraping continued. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Like someone dragging a chair. I opened the door. Every chair was pushed away from the table. Not scattered. Arranged. All 12 chairs forming a perfect circle in the center of the room. Facing inward. I was the only person on this floor. My hands went cold. I pulled out my phone. Took photos. Started to document it. Then I stopped. This is what everyone else reported. This is what they saw. But I'd never found anything. Not once in 6 months. Nothing to document. Nothing unusual. Because I'd been the first one in each room. Whatever was happening, it was waiting for me to leave. I looked at the chairs again. At the perfect circle. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy boots. Security doing rounds. I stepped back into the supply closet. Waited. The guard walked past. Continued down the hall. Didn't check the conference room. After he left, I went back to look. The chairs were back at the table. All 12. Perfectly positioned like I'd left them originally. Like nothing had happened. I stood there trying to make sense of it. Then I noticed something on the table. Something I'd missed before. A duty roster. Printed schedule showing which janitor cleaned which section. My name was listed for the West Wing. But there were notes written in the margins. Different handwriting. Looked like Rodriguez's. Next to my name, unaware. Next to Jalen, participant. Next to Janet, complicit. Next to Rodriguez's own name, organizer. Below that, written in red ink, test subject shows no signs of recognizing pattern. Recommend continuation of protocol. My throat went dry. I took a photo of the roster. Looked closer at the handwriting. Some of it was dated. The oldest entry was from 6 months ago. The week I started working here. I heard footsteps again. Multiple people this time, coming from both stairwells. I shoved the roster in my pocket, grabbed my cleaning cart, tried to look normal. Jalen appeared from the east stairs, Janet from the west. Both of them smiled when they saw me. "Hey bro, you're working late tonight." Jalen's voice was friendly. Too friendly. "Just finishing up. Conference room's all set." Janet glanced past me into the room. Her smile didn't change. "Good. We were just checking the upper floors. Rodriguez wanted us to make sure everything was documented properly." She emphasized that last word. Looked right at me when she said it. My phone buzzed. Text from Rodriguez. "Need you in the basement archive room. Now. Bring your cart." I looked at Jalen and Janet. They were both watching me. Waiting. "Supervisor needs me downstairs." Janet nodded. "Of course. Don't keep him waiting." They stepped aside. "Let me pass." I took the stairs down, each floor darker than the last. By the time I reached the basement, the only light was coming from the archive room at the end of the hall. Rodriguez was standing in the doorway. His face was hard to read in the shadows. "Come in. Close the door behind you." I wheeled my cart inside. The room looked normal. Filing cabinets, boxes, concrete floor. Rodriguez locked the door again. 6 months. You haven't reported a single incident. Do you know how unusual that is? I stayed quiet. Everyone sees something eventually. Everyone documents. Everyone participates. But not you. He walked to one of the filing cabinets. Pulled out a folder. My personnel file. We've been watching. Testing. Moving things after you clean. Breaking things. Leaving evidence. Waiting for you to notice. Waiting for you to report it. Why? Because this facility has protocols. Real protocols, not the ones in your employee handbook. And those protocols require documentation. Official record. Evidence that something happened. He opened my file. Showed me pages of incident reports. Hundreds of them. All filed by other staff members over the years. Every person who works overnight eventually sees something they can't explain. And when they document it, when they make it official, they become part of the system. Part of what happens here after dark. What happens here? Rodriguez smiled. Nothing you can prove. Nothing you can report. Because you never see it. You're always one room ahead. Always just out of sync. He pulled out another document. A contract. My signature at the bottom. You signed this when you were hired. Agreed to report all anomalies. All incidents. All evidence of irregular activity. It's legally binding. I signed a standard employment agreement. Read Section 12, subsection C. I looked at the contract. The text was small. Dense legal language. But there in subsection C, employee acknowledges that failure to document observed phenomena constitutes breach of contract and acceptance of liability for any incidents occurring in assigned areas. My fingers went numb. You're the only one not leaving evidence, which means legally, you're responsible for everything that happens in your section. Every broken beaker, every bloodstain, every unexplained damage. That's insane. Rodriguez shrugged. That's the contract. And now we have 6 months of incidents in your area with no documentation. No reports. No evidence that you attempted to fulfill your duties. He pulled out another folder. This one was thicker. Incident reports from my section. Dozens of them. Filed by other staff members after I'd cleaned. All of this happened in areas you were responsible for. All of it went unreported by you. The facility is conducting an internal investigation. They want to know why you've been covering things up. I'm not covering anything up. There's nothing there when I clean. Then why does everyone else find something minutes after you leave? The question hung in the air. Rodriguez walked to the door. Unlocked it. You have until Monday to submit a comprehensive incident report. Document everything. Every area you've cleaned. Every possible anomaly. Or the facility will assume you've been deliberately concealing evidence of, well, whatever they decide has been happening. What if I quit? The contract has a non-disclosure clause. You can't discuss anything you've observed here, and you can't leave until the investigation is complete. That's Section 19. He opened the door. Jalen and Janet were standing in the hallway, waiting. They'll help you with your report. They've been documenting for months. They know what you need to write. Rodriguez left. Jalen and Janet stepped inside. Janet pulled out a laptop, opened a document. My name at the top. It's easier if you just copy from our reports. Change the timestamps. Make it look like you saw the same things we did. We all do it. Everyone who works here. You're the last one who hasn't figured it out yet. I looked at the laptop screen. At the template they'd prepared. Paragraphs of detailed incidents. Timestamps. Locations. Descriptions. All fake. All manufactured. All designed to create an official record of things that never happened. Janet's voice was soft. Almost kind. You either document the lies, or you become responsible for the truth. My phone buzzed. Email from the facility director. Subject: mandatory incident report required. Your employment file shows 0 incident reports filed in 6 months. This is statistically impossible and suggests either negligence or deliberate concealment. You have 72 hours to submit a complete accounting of all observable anomalies in your assigned areas. Failure to comply will result in termination and potential legal action under Section 12C of your employment contract. Jalen handed me a pen. Just sign it. We already wrote everything. You just need to make it official. I looked at the document, at page after page of fabricated incidents, at my signature line at the bottom, and I finally understood. There was nothing wrong with this building. There never had been. The horror was the paperwork. I didn't sign it. Jalen and Janet left at 4 a.m., told me I had until morning to reconsider. I spent the rest of my shift going through their reports, really reading them, looking for patterns. Every incident they documented had exact timestamps, precise locations, detailed descriptions, too detailed, like they'd been written before the incidents happened. At 6:30 a.m., I pulled the security footage from Thursday night. The conference room, the chairs arranged in a circle. The cameras showed me cleaning, leaving at 2:17 a.m. Then at 2:25 a.m., Jalen entering, moving the chairs himself, taking photos, leaving. At 2:28 a.m., he returned, put the chairs back. I checked more footage, found Janet smearing her own handprints on windows, Rodriguez spilling chemicals in storage rooms, all of them creating the evidence they later documented, all of them filing reports about things they'd done themselves. I opened my email, started typing my incident report. After 6 months of observation, I can confirm that all documented incidents in this facility are being staged by staff members. Evidence attached. I attached the security footage. Hit send. The facility director responded in 4 minutes. Report received. However, your contract requires documentation of observable phenomena, not investigation of other employees. Your report is rejected. You have 48 hours to submit proper documentation or face termination. I read it 3 times. They didn't care that it was fake. They just needed someone to make it official. Monday morning, I didn't show up for my shift. Tuesday, I received a certified letter. Breach of contract. Legal action pending. They were holding me responsible for every undocumented incident in my section. 6 months of broken equipment, chemical spills, property damage, all of it staged. All of it now legally my fault. Wednesday, Jalen called me. Just sign the reports. We already wrote them. You just need to make them official. That's all they want. Why me? His voice was tired. Because someone has to be the last one. Someone has to be the person who documents everyone else. That's how the system works. We all did it. Now it's your turn. And if I refuse, then you're responsible for everything. And they'll find someone else to replace you. Someone who will eventually realize what we realized. That the real job isn't cleaning. It's creating evidence that nothing happened. I hung up, looked at the unsigned reports still sitting on my kitchen table, and decided right there that I wasn't going to be part of whatever was going on. My phone buzzed. Email from the facility. New hire orientation scheduled for Monday. Your replacement starts next week. Please ensure all documentation is complete before your final shift. I opened the attachment. New employee contract. Same position. Same hours. Same building. Different name. But in Section 12, subsection C, the same clause. And I wondered how long it would take them to figure it out. If you made it this far, you're already part of the Grave Hour. Tap subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss when the next nightmare drops.